Okay, welcome everybody to our coaches and parents. We had a change of plans today. Ash and Matt got on the phone and decided to get going on something that seemed more pressing and more important at the time to discuss as a club and to educate ourselves on this subject. So Matt is going to take it away. A little background on Matt, if you haven't met him, he is the coach's coach of all the coaches in Alberta. Taken a couple classes with him myself, a couple courses, and he's been absolutely fantastic at looking at different perspectives, driving different ideas home, and really opening spaces for coaches to grow and communicate their ideas. So hopefully tonight we've got a bit of back and forth going. We invite everybody to make their voices heard. Whether that's in the chat or you have something that you'd like to say, please step in. We'd love to hear from you. And with that being said, welcome, Matt. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Laura. So again, thank you for everyone. I can't see how many we have on the call, but
26.
Thank you for everyone. How many?
26.
26. Thank you. So yeah, thank you for being on the call. It won't be too long, but the time we will spend, we'll spend it constructively. Just to give me an idea, can you just write your name in the chat box so I can see who's in the chat box? So there should be a little chat box there. And just let me know if you're a coach or a parent, just so I know. And the reason I do this is because on my screen, when I'm looking on my screen, all I have is a presentation, so I can't actually see anyone. So the chat box is my very, very, very good friend here. There we go. Brilliant. So we've got Tara, John, Steve, Robert, Ann, Janine, hopefully I said that okay. Nathan, Jeremy, Kath and Chris, fantastic. Good. Sylvia, no, fantastic, good. So it looks like we've got a good mix. And again, Laura, anytime during this, if there's something you want me to discuss or dive deeper, or you'd like to just bring a question up, just go away. That's how we like to run things. Okay. So as Laura mentioned, I was meant to be doing a webinar based on body language. And Ash texted me earlier and we talked, and he wondered if I would go into a discussion regarding what's going on around us right now, the racism, and dive into it with the parents and obviously the coaches who are on this call. We just had, I think, 79 kids a while ago on the call an hour ago, which was really great, engaging. So hopefully you'll get some tips out of this. I will be sharing some resources with Ash and Laura after this regarding some of the things we're going to be talking about. Okay, so before I start, give me a big thumbs up so I know everyone's ready, everyone's awake, and we're ready to go. Give me a big thumbs up in the chat box because I can't see you. You keep forgetting. Okay, good. So they're starting to come through now. Brilliant. Dave, Willie, yep, brilliant. Okay, so let's see if my slide. Okay, so I've put this slide up because again, we're all aware of what's going on around us, and you know, it's not easy. It's not easy, and some of us might have dealt with it on this call. Some of us have never probably dealt with it. Some of us just don't know how to deal with it. But what I am going to say with you, and I was sharing this with the group earlier, I was on a call with 700 people from around the world 48 hours ago. 25 of them were from Minnesota with what's going on there. And it was great to be on the call. I was asked to be on the call. I've been in Canada 14 years and no one's ever asked me to talk about this, to engage in these conversations, because they're not comfortable conversations. But one thing that came out that night, which a lot of people, and you had black people, you had white people, everyone was on the call. It was to acknowledge that it's real and it exists. For far too long, we've had people who have just stood back and said, well, it's not my bubble. It doesn't include me. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't, right? And you'll have friends. You'll have friends that will appreciate you just acknowledging it. Acknowledgement. Just acknowledge what's happening because it's real. And I'm going to share some of my stories as we go through this as well. Because I'm 44 years old right now, and I'm still going through it. From when I first encountered it at 15 to still now in Alberta going through it. But one of the number one things because people say, well, what's the first thing I should do? Just acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. The moment you start to acknowledge it, it starts to do this. It starts to create a space where me and others and anyone can start to feel free now to share some of these things that we might be going through. Because you'll have friends who are going through things that won't share anything with you because the space is not there. The trust is not there. Or the respect is not there to say that you've acknowledged it. Okay? Give me a big thumbs up if that's something you can relate to a little bit or it makes sense to you. Right? Give me a thumbs up. Yes, thumbs up. Raise a hand, whatever you've got in your chat box. Good, okay. So everyone's on par. Good. And again, during this, if there's anyone that wants to ask a question, this presentation is open. It's a free space. Ask a question if there's any questions that come up as I'm going through this. Okay? So tips on dealing with, when we talk about the comfort zone. We all come from different backgrounds, different environments. And a lot of us live in this world of, it's just this. It's just this. I only see what's in front of me here. And what I will ask is, going forward, can you start to do this? Where you now start to do this? Because this isn't about, just Black people. It's about us as a whole. It's about us as a whole. And the only way we can deal with it, not only for the generation now, but the generations to come, because a lot of you on the call right now have kids. I have kids, 9 and 8. So we're all in that same boat. But we've got to come out of that comfort zone now and start saying, okay, what can I do? What are some of the steps I can start to take? And come out of that comfort zone, because it's so easy to stay in it. And as I said to the group earlier, staying quiet doesn't do anything. It doesn't get to the root of what we need to get to. And again, you'll have colleagues, the coaches that are on here, you'll have coaching colleagues. They're going through things daily, weekly, but the space isn't there for them to speak yet. The parents on this call, you'll have friends going through things, and some of them might share it with you. Some of them won't. I was sharing with the group earlier. I'm 44 years old. Been back in Edmonton a year and a bit now. And I went to a hotel here in Alberta, Lac La Biche. And I walked in, and one of the first things the receptionist said to me was, "You're not intending to stay here, are you?" And I had to take a step back. And I'm not talking in the 80s, in the 90s. I'm talking a year ago, right now in this province. The woman says to me, "You're not intending to stay here." Luckily for me, I know how to channel negativity. But I tell you what did hurt. One, that she was obviously expressing this and expressing to me as a receptionist how she looked on me, because she didn't know me. She didn't know me. I'm checking in this hotel on behalf of Alberta Soccer. And all she's seen is this Black man checking in, and I'm going to make an assumption, and that was it. So that was one of the things that really peed me off. But I'll give you one of The second big things was I came back to Edmonton and I shared it with people who I thought I needed to share it with. And do you know what I was told? Suck it up. Just deal with it. It's not important. That's what I was told. 15 years of age, playing at my first professional club, Warsaw. We were playing Aston Villa. Some of you might know that club, some of you might not. They're in the Premier League. I remember standing next to someone and marking them, 15 years old. And this kid said to me, "We heard black people have diseases, don't touch me." And the two reasons I bring the two of them up, because it started way before I was 15, but I remember it clearly from 15 to right now. And I'm sharing this with you because a lot of what I'm going to share with you tonight, I haven't shared with a lot of people in the world. But it needs to be said. Because a lot of you might know me and you'll see my profile, and I am very positive. I was just telling Laura, I haven't slept in 4 nights because of what's going on and how this is affecting me. I was near to closing this down today and saying I can't do it. And I said, you know what? Keep plugging away. Keep plugging away. But we need to start having these difficult conversations. They're not going to be pretty, but we need to start having them. It's the way how we start to do this, bridge that gap. We're all human beings. But we need to start having those conversations. And those conversations could be, hey, I've sat on the sidelines for years, didn't know, didn't care, but I've opened my eyes to society now and what's going on. What's going on with these kids who are the next generation? What's going on with my peers who are meant to be my friends, but I can see clearly in their heart they've got another agenda. These are conversations we need to start having. How can I help? How can I educate myself to understand some of what's gone on to where it's leading to where it is right now? So the first one was acknowledgement. Second one, we need to start having these conversations. Okay? If you can relate to anything I've said there, give me a thumbs up in the chat box, please. Anything. Whether it be my experiences, whether it be, again, where we're going with this for the next generation, does it make sense? If some of you in this, you know, you've sat on the sidelines, as long as you're recognizing that now and you're willing to say, hey, I can't be silent no more. Okay? I'll put this in here. And again, this presentation was built literally like in 20 minutes because I originally, as I said, we had a presentation planned and Ash just said, you know what, can we address this? And just for the coaches and the parents that are on this call, I've been in this country 14 years, held various positions. And I take my hat off to your leadership and your leadership team who are comfortable enough and trustworthy enough to say, hey, let's have this discussion. Let's have this conversation. No one else in this country, from a soccer perspective, has ever done that in my 14 years being here. So again, I've said it earlier, Laura, Ash, Scotty, you're here. I take my hat off. You're a family. The parents on here, you're a family. You all wear the badge of a club, and that club has morals, values. And again, you're one of my favorite clubs. All right? But your words will tell others what you think, but your actions will tell them what you believe. Action. So we've just talked about acknowledgement, conversation, Now, can we put some action to it? And that action could be a variety of things. It could be getting on Google and really diving into where some of this stuff is coming from, because it's there. It could be having those conversations with your kids. I had to have this conversation with my kids, who are 9 and 8 years old, on the weekend. They were crying, upset, confused. I had to have this conversation with my own kids, what they were seeing on TV. I was telling Laura, my kids are in Calgary, where you all are right now. 9 years old. And a 9-year-old girl says to my daughter, this is only a few months ago in Calgary, just because you're black, I'm still going to be your friend. At 9 years old. Do you know how sick I felt? Sick. And it's up to all of us to start having these conversations and taking action. Silence doesn't do it no more. It doesn't do it. You can't just sweep something and, hopefully by next week it goes away. It's still enrooted within our environments. Okay? And hopefully after tonight, you'll think about this and say, okay, how can I start helping this? What can I do? Not only with your own family, but others. Because it does start at home and then it grows from there. There's people that want to reach out to you. I just spoke to the players. There'll be players on the team that are going through this daily, weekly, but are scared to speak about it. Scared. I just told you I'm 44 years old and I have hardly spoke about any of this stuff. And all I've got is bottled up in me. And when someone's got something bottled up in them for so long, what do you think happens? They start to, right? But luckily for me, I was brought up with a mum and dad who told me no matter what I was going through, see the best in everyone. See someone's heart, not the color of their skin. See someone's actions. So all of this that I've got bottled up in me, I've known how to, it's not healthy, don't get me wrong, it's not. But it hasn't created hate within me. When I was playing soccer and I had people throwing bananas at me and spitting on me, that didn't break me. But I shouldn't have had to go through that. And those adults that were around me, when I expressed to them what I was doing, and they just kept saying, it's not important, forget about it. We've got to get away from that. And I'm not saying anyone on this call has done that, but that's the reality of what's going on now. It's so easy for people to say, don't worry about it. So before I move on here, give me a thumbs up again. Give me a thumbs up. Again, if there's something in there that you want me to speak more to as I'm going through these slides, again, this is a free space. I want you to feel free within this. Okay? So obviously I had this for the kids earlier when I said, check in with your teammates. It's like everyone on this call, you're part of one family. Check in with your family members. If you're a coach, check in with your other coaches. Check in with the kids that you coach. Check in with the other kids that you don't coach. That's being part of a family. Remember I mentioned earlier, it's so easy to stay in this bubble. Start looking at things from the bigger perspective. Because there's people out there hurting. And staying silent doesn't do anything. The moment it's acknowledged, the moment we can start to have those conversations, the moment we start to have that action, not only are you learning, but you're helping others. You're helping others, because that's a start. Okay? And that's something we're all capable of doing. We've just been stuck in the house for the last couple of months. Some of us have obviously been going out to work as well. And I said this months ago, check in. And I said it to a lot of clubs out there. It's great that you're doing all the online field stuff, but go deeper than that. How are you actually doing? Check in with the kids mentally. How are you doing? What are you struggling with? What can I help you with? Check in with the parents, because their world has changed. So when I say check-in, it's not just for one, it's something we should be constantly doing. Because everyone's fighting a battle sometimes we just don't know. And the reasons we just don't know is because me and many others like me don't feel free enough in a space to have these conversations. I do now, but it's took many years of that. But just think of a child who might be going through this. Should they have to wait 30, 40 years before they feel free to communicate because of the space that we've created as adults? No. No. And I'm not just talking black kids, I'm talking everyone. Because again, I see hearts, I see people, I don't see color. Anyone known me long enough, that's always been me, regardless of all the stuff I've gone through and still are going through. Before I became, TDs and all of that, I was coaching teams. And I remember once a team was put together before they actually got to meet me. And I met with the team, as you do. You have your parent meetings. And someone came in and were like, where's the coach? And I'm like, hey, I'm the coach. Nice to meet you. And they're like, you can't be the coach. And I'm like, yeah, I am the coach. And they're like, well, I refuse for my child to be coached by anyone black. I remember that. And again, do you know what hurt me in that situation? Not one other adult person who was there said anything. Because everyone was more, doesn't involve me, I'm going to stay on the sidelines. My main point with all of this is, let's not create environments where it takes 20, 30, 40 years for people to really come out and talk about how they're feeling and share and grow. Let's not create those environments, because being silent does that. Okay, give me a thumbs up again. Make sure you're all awake here still. Does anyone have any questions at this point as well? Does anyone have any questions? You can use the chat box, or if you feel comfortable enough to come on video and ask a question as well as we're going through this. Is anyone okay? Laura, anything from you?
Yeah, one of the questions that we discussed at length in the previous seminar was how do we start the conversation? And as coaches, how do we address it when we see it happening? How do we make that comfortable space? How do we create it when it feels like a very, very touchy subject?
Yeah. One, just acknowledge it, first of all. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge it, and I said that to the kids earlier, whether you're an adult or kid, acknowledge it and communicate it. Communicate it. It's no different to, someone being abused and us going, well, it's not my child, doesn't involve me, I'll turn the blind eye. That doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help. So if you see it, if you hear it, put some action to it, because it doesn't help the situation. And going forward, again, if we need, obviously, I'm sure we'll do a lot more initiatives with this as a club, with working with you, Laura and Ash and Scott and everyone. But yeah, just communicate it. Just communicate it. Because nothing worse than the person who is affecting, as I mentioned earlier, seeing the environment of people just ignoring it like it doesn't exist. Ignoring it like that wasn't said. Ignoring it like that just didn't happen. Acknowledge it, put some conversation to it, and then some action to it.
Right.
And whether that's a club coach discussing it with the parents, discussing it with the child, vice versa, or even coming to you as a club and having these conversations. They need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They need to happen.
It's amazing to me that 14 years and you've never been asked to speak on this. It's unbelievable.
No. And like I said to you earlier, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because it's around us daily.
I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm really not surprised. I mean, this Alberta, you know, or certainly Calgary, Calgarians don't want to talk about emotive subjects, right? I'm from Battersea, right? It's a predominantly black neighbourhood, right? We talked about everything. It's a different world, right? So, fortunately, and I haven't coached, you know, really older sort of kids and young adults, so at my groups up to sort of under 13 so far in the last 8 years or so, I haven't experienced racism. And if I did it would be stamped out straight away, whether it was parents or kids or anybody else, it would be dealt with. You know, and I've coached, you know, kids of various nationalities and colours. I mean, personally, as a coach, I don't see colour either. You know, we're there to play football. End of, really. But that's me, so.
Thank you. Who was that? Nathan that was speaking?
Mate. It was.
Yeah, sorry. Your face just appeared on my screen.
Yeah, I was just moving because my kids are downstairs watching a box, and I thought we're going to talk in a minute, so I just come upstairs.
Yeah, no, thank you, and thank you for sharing that, Nathan. Because again, it's yeah, you know, we've got to keep pushing it because again, it's I'll go to my next slide, and it goes into my next slide here.
Cool.
So when you look at that, you know, we're seeing it on the news right now, and that's that right there. What's caught on the phone? But look at the root of a lot of this is down here. Because not every situation's on the TV. Not every situation that your players possibly are going through is on TV. But this was a great image for me, and again, the guy put this up just before I came on with the kids earlier, and I thought I need to put this in because it speaks volumes, right? People say this and sometimes want to discuss this, but we've got to get to this, the root. Now, I did this with the kids, and I'm going to do it with everyone in here, and I'm going to ask, not do. Can everyone put in the chat box, what is racism to them? What is racism to them? Just put in because it was interesting because we had 79 kids a while ago put in the chat box what racism was to them, and it was interesting. So would you mind just putting that in the chat box so I can see? Fantastic. Thank you, Robert. Malta, John, fantastic. Thank you, John. Ignorance from Jim. Liam, putting yourself above someone else based on fantastic. Nathan, any definition of individual or group based on creed or color? Yeah. Stuart, Steve, the willingness to not accept others. Fantastic. Fantastic. Prejudice and ignorance and intolerance. Love it. There you go. So, you know, a lot of what you've just put there, I'm totally with you. Divines, hopefully I spot that. You know, I'll give you my view on it. It's hate. Racism is hate. It's looking at someone, even though they're a human being, dismissing all of that, and it's just anger of hatred. Hatred. Whether that person's young, in their teens, you know, early 30s or older, it's just hatred. And again, I'm not dismissing anything you've put there, because everything you've put there, I believe truly. But I look on it, when people say, I say it's hatred. It's hate. And if we stop sitting on that fence and saying, well, you know, come out of our bubbles and start doing this with hate, because sitting on the sideline does this. It does this. And this starts to grow even more. And again, it might not be you who's going through it, but you can be a, what's the word? Ally? Is that correct, Laura? Ally? Right? In this whole thing, working together. So like I said in the presentation before this, I'm going to be sharing some resources with regarding a lot of this stuff that you, whether you know it or you don't, you can start to do this. Get an understanding. Have the conversations. Put some action to it. Because again, we don't want kids 20, 30, 40 years from now feeling like they can't speak. Going through things and thinking, this isn't an environment for me to speak. If I speak, someone's gonna dismiss it. I'm gonna get looked down on. We don't want that. No matter who that person is, who that child is. Racism, someone getting abused, it's all the same, right? We should never be ignoring it. So again, I do want to thank everyone. I am going to open it up for any questions. Laura, if you have any, Scott, if you have any. And again, I do want to thank the club for creating the space to have this conversation, this discussion, because it's not an easy one. And it won't be going forward, but it needs to happen.
So I'll just jump in, Matty, and thanks very much for the presentation. It's really powerful, especially in what we're going through right now in the world. Like clearly, you know, your messaging is whether we see it or not, it's happening. It's happening all the time around us. Now we might be fortunate enough to be in our in a team environment. It doesn't happen, but you know, it probably is happening. We just don't see it and we don't know. So I'm guessing, you know, it'd be really good to have, you know, joint effort with the province, and then with all of our kind of partner, you know, all the clubs that we play against and interact with on a regular basis, and have a kind of, you know, community-led education piece and awareness piece, because clearly, you know, even though we've had a lot of kick it out racism and all those campaigns, still isn't getting through. And maybe we're not hitting the right ages. Maybe we're not, you know, making kids aware that, you know, at young ages, because we feel that we don't need to. But I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that. At what age should we be making, you know, should we have awareness pieces and education pieces for this as an organization?
Yeah, I think you start at the youngest age and keep building. You know, at home, you however old your kids are, but you've got to start it, right? You know, again, I mentioned my daughter's 9. If I could have said, well, I'll wait until she's, you know, early teens to start having this discussion. Society doesn't wait for ignorance to start. It starts when it starts. And we've got to start having those conversations, as difficult as they are, with kids as young, you know, I'm not talking when they're 3 or 4, but we've got to start having those conversations.
Perfect.
Because nothing worse than society putting something on a child or making a child feel a certain way, and us feeling or knowing we could have helped with that mindset a little bit,
yep.
But we chose not to, because we thought maybe, you know, my child goes to this school and there's none of that in that school, or my child mixes with these kids, so there's none of that. It's out there. You'll have kids on your team right now that are going through things. And depending on your relationship, depending on your environment, will determine whether they will share those things with you. And it's one thing them sharing it. The second, have those conversations, because sometimes that's all it takes. So getting back to your question, Scotty, the earlier the better. The earlier the better. And it doesn't mean you're only concentrating, obviously I think as a club, what's your oldest age?
U17 in youth, but we do go into adult as well.
I was just going to say, right across the board.
Yep.
Right across the board. Right? Because a lot of kids are seeing these images on TV right now. And I've spoke to a lot of them. A lot of them are confused. They don't know how to handle this. And we've got to be there to guide them.
Okay.
Great question, Scotty.
Matt, can you hear me?
John. Yeah.
A couple of things, basically to get rid of racism, obviously is the key. But then you think a lot of the time we've had in the past has been, unfortunately, kind of lip service. You can put a poster up, stamp out racism.
Yeah.
But we go from there. No one's like, oh, I put a poster up, but we haven't taken it any further.
Yeah.
And also, you look at what you said about what's happening in the world now. Kids are looking up, and this is the authority that are making mistakes.
Yeah.
So it's not like the everyday. Well, it is an everyday person, but let's put it what it is. It's the police at the moment.
Yeah.
It's been criticised. So these are the people we should be looking up to.
Yeah.
I mean, you think that has some sway with people that they're looking up and they're thinking, who do I go to? What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, John, that's where you've got to have that relationship that as long as someone's having that conversation, as soon as someone starts to have that conversation, that's a great starting point. Because you're right, people will see all of this and they say, well, that's the police or whoever. But as long as they're coming to you and starting to have those conversations, it's powerful. It's powerful. Because what we don't want, like I said with my own self, I'm 44, I've kept so much bottled up. And luckily for me, I've known how to deal with that. But there's others that don't. And they go out there and they lash out and they do this and they do that. Because it's just years and years and years of frustration built up. Because I never had an adult make me feel like it was okay for me to express what I was going through.
Right.
So it's those conversations, John, and that environment, making that environment where no matter what, I am here for you. I am here for you. You know?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, John. Any others? Any others on here? Everyone's okay? I can't see my chat box. Is there anything in the chat box? Are we good?
I didn't see anything in there. If there's anything last minute to throw it in the chat, what a resource to have in Matt at this time. So any thoughts, comments, please toss them in there.
Matt, it's Dan here.
Hey, Dan.
I just want to ask you from a standpoint of this corona or COVID-19, do you think everything is escalated due to what occurred possibly in China, what has come across the world, and what has, I guess, just has been pushed from the media standpoint? Do you think it's elevated over time and that's why we're seeing such a huge indication, or has it been there for the past 20 or 40 years like you've been mentioning?
Yeah, it's been there a long time, Dan. Been there a long time. And again, you'll get the, I see the media spinning this a little bit about looters and blah, 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 and trying to take the message away from what it is. We're talking about a human being was killed in ways that, no matter who it is, no matter what color, no, it's a human being. And all we're seeing right now is this anger built up over years of people not listening. When I mentioned earlier about speaking, I've been dismissed. I've been made to feel small. All we're seeing now is just anger. It's just anger. Nothing to do with COVID or being locked in the house for the last few months. It's just anger of what's gone on and anger of the last how many years? How many years? And there's got to be a time when we say, you know, I saw something on, someone sent me something the other day, and it was, you know, there was a guy that was protesting, he was 46. There was a man that was protesting, he was 31, and a child that was protesting at 15. When do we as people start to say, we've got to switch this? Every generation, this shouldn't be something that every generation has to go through. And John's right, you know, lip service. You're right, there's been a lot of lip service. And this is why when I had in the presentation, action, we've got to start taking action. Because we've done the lip service and it hasn't worked. So hopefully that kind of covers your question, Dan. And I'm sorry if I come off, I'm really passionate, I'm hurting. Like I said, and I wasn't going to do this, and I said I'd come on and do it because, again, I think it's something that needs to be addressed and hopefully just change some form of mindset with people, you know. So hopefully that helps, Dan. Answer your question.
Great. No, that's great, and I appreciate you doing this. And I think all of us, as parents and coaches and mentors in today's public, definitely appreciate it. So,
yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to second that quickly, Matt, because it's such an emotive time to be having this conversation. It's very difficult, and I'm sure there's people on the phone that have thoughts in their mind and, you know, are wary of saying anything, and which makes it doubly difficult at this time. I think going back to what I was saying, I'm from London. You know, it's predominantly non-white, if there is such a thing as white.
Yeah.
You know, the problem is once we start calling people black and white and whatever else, we're already creating an us and an them and a social group. I feel that way about Tottenham fans, if I can be light about it. You know, as soon as we start doing an us and them thing, right, then we're already creating the problem.
Yeah.
You know, when we've got our kids going to schools with people from different, you know, speak different languages, they're different colours, they've got different abilities or disabilities, it becomes a normal for the kids.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I've consciously, even living here with my daughter, you know, she does have friends from all sorts of places and colours of creeds, and it's important. So, you know, she makes her own friends, but I've put her in environments and specifically put her in a school earlier when we first lived here, which kind of helped that to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, if we talk about it as an organisation, you know, the more kids we have that aren't, you know, I'm going to say white. I don't like the term white as much as I don't like the term black personally. You know, because otherwise we start, if we can get these teams together and we actually make the mix happen, right, and make it a norm. Right, I'm not saying we cherry pick or anything. I'm just saying if we can be sensible about the way we do it and make it like a normal thing. And yes, obviously, should we hear anything? I mean, I've never had it happen, but you know, if something was said in the crowd or, you know, by a player, the game would, I'd be stopping the game and I'd be having, you know, people on the benches and the referees and officials dealing with it, or we wouldn't be continuing with the game. It's quite simple, really.
Yeah.
You know, so that we can do. But the thing is, the minute we start, you know, calling it out and making those groups, we already create, we actually perpetuate the problem in a way. It's like we have to have the conversation, but we've got to be very careful that we don't create an us and a them. Right? You know, because I think that's part of the ongoing problem. It's why it just continues. Right. And when you're in a obviously areas and countries and cities that are predominantly white. I mean, I lived in Calgary briefly 20 years ago. You didn't see anybody of colour. The only people of colour you saw were the Asians that came in of a night time when you were leaving the office. They were coming in to clean. Calgary's changed. So, you know, going back to where you're from and where I'm from, obviously back in the day, you know, if Aston Villa came down to Chelsea, of course there was racism. Of course there was. Right? It was the 70s. Right? So, you know, the 70s and 80s were horrible. You know, and it was an us and them thing. And you know, so it's getting better. Like I say, I grew up in Battersea. It's a million times better than it was 20 years ago, right? But growing up around people of colour, of different backgrounds, different cultures, it's just normal. Once it becomes normal, you don't see it. And people that haven't grown up like that, then it's different. Then it becomes, oh, I don't understand you. And it's that ignorance part where people said earlier, you become ignorant. I don't understand you, therefore I'm not going to like you. Right? You're different. Right? And that's the problem, right? That's the problem. Instead of just saying people for people. Right? And that's where as soon as you see that as a coach, people kind of looking at other players or whatever, because they seem different, then we've got to sort of come up with strategies of talking to people or through the game, right? We're just talking about the game, and people start respecting each other for playing football, and then they go, oh, actually that person's just like me, right? And then it goes away. So it's that fine sort of, for me, a fine line between talking about it or being very clever about the way we just normalize people for being people, right? And I don't know how you feel about that, Matt, because I'm not black. I can't talk as a black person. But for me, it was normal growing up because we just treated each other the same. You know what I mean?
And unfortunately for me, growing up in England, it wasn't. I'd go through the I could give you some stories here that would turn your belly. Things that people did or tried to do. I remember arriving in Calgary in 2009. And I remember someone saying to me, someone was pushing my buttons. And when I say pushing my buttons, really trying to antagonize me. And you know what they said to me? They said, I want you to lose your cool so you can go to jail for life, because I'm white and I will only go to jail for a few years.
Wow.
And that is something, and again, imagine if I didn't have the coolness of what I have to deal with something. But that's someone I was dealing with who had a plan, which was for me to hurt them as bad as I can, for me to go away for a long time.
Yeah, man.
That is what we're dealing with sometimes. So yes, it is different. And you're right, like I said earlier, I see people, I've always seen people after everything I've gone through and still going through, I see people. When we look on the TV and we look at the protests, one of the greatest things to see is you see everyone out there, not just black people, you see everyone.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because you get, I was seeing in the press, some people, saying they don't want people that aren't black, and I don't get that. It's like, they're trying to make it out like it's just for black people to protest. Of course it isn't. Right? What happened was an outrage. Full stop.
Yeah. It's for humankind, it's for all humans, right? But no, and again, Nate, thank you for sharing, because you're right, not everyone's comfortable, and I understand that and I respect that on this platform. Not only comfortable talking about this, but talking about this in front of other people. So again, I thank you. Definitely thank you.
Cheers, fella.
Yeah. Okay. Are we good then, Laura? Yeah? Can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry, I just want to read very quickly. There was a couple comments in the chat.
Okay. Do you want to read them to me?
Sure, yeah. So Liam W. said, I think parents are one of the biggest, strongest voices kids should hear saying these things. Well spoken, Matt. And then Caroline replied, I agree with Mr. Liam. We as parents and educators, we have the responsibility to be a positive role model, to listen, to have the time to chat to our children about what is going on in our lives, in their friends' lives. We came from South America and our family is related with all that is happening. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Couple more. I think it's not that no one knows or is ignorant about racism, for the lack of it pretends. It's that there is no consequence for doing so, and that makes it okay. Again, I agree it should start from home. And thank you for your time.
Yeah. I thank you all. I really do. Like I said, it's been 14 years, and this is the first time in 14 years I've ever had this conversation. And again, I can't thank the club. I look on you as family. And again, you proved it tonight when, you know, Ash. And do you want to share what you're telling me about not asking me? With the group?
Yeah, I will actually. So funny enough, Ash and I were chatting today. We both really wanted to talk to Matt about doing something given the current climate. But I was so nervous about how to approach him with it because I didn't want to put him on the spot and I didn't want him to feel uncomfortable. And so I was laughing at myself because during the presentation, the biggest thing that I took away from it was have the conversation. Have the conversation. And so Matt and I actually had a laugh after it because I felt that I had to confess to him. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so stupid now. I should have felt so comfortable coming to you. And so, you know, I want to thank Ash who made it, you know, he was like, just do it, Mac. Like, I'll do it. It's fine. And, you know, it speaks to him. And so after I was laughing at myself. And so I wanted to thank Matt. Thank you very much for making it easy. Something that I made out to be difficult and it didn't need to be that way. So thank you for enlightening me and shedding the light on maybe how ignorant I felt and how ignorant I can be without even knowing it.
Yeah, no, and it's you know, we're all learning here, like I said, and it's the fact that this is the first club in 14 years in this country that has actually been open to having this discussion, and says a lot for me. And again, I can't thank you all. Again, like I said, I am hurting and I've tried my best to keep it, you know, but thank you. I'll send those resources. And again, if you want to share them to your members, no. And again, anyone on this call, if you want to reach out, I'm here. As I always say, anyone who knows me, social media, that reach out. I'm always here. You know, I love everyone, and I just want to see a better world. And I know it's within us to do that. Yeah. But you know, I get people, friends, well, I'm not racist, so I'm anti, you know, just do something about it then. Come over here. Let's do something about it, right? Yeah. And that's all people like myself are saying. You know, I'll go through these crappy situations daily and whatever, as long as I've got people who are saying, hey, let's make change. Okay? So thank you all.
Very much appreciated.
All right. Thank you. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Yeah, you too, Matt. Look after yourself, fella. Have to have a pint when you're in town.
Definitely.
All right. Take care, mate. See you soon.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, mate.
Okay. Thank you.